They laughed at her dress, whispered about her skin, and called her out of place. What they didn't know. She was the one holding the pen that could make, or break, their billion-dollar empire. The chandeliers sparkled above the grand ballroom, where crystal glasses clinked and laughter spilled across the room like champagne. Everyone in the billionaire Harrington family looked immaculate, dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, their voices rich with the confidence of generations of inherited wealth. They were the kind of family whose last name carried more power than most entire companies, and tonight they were hosting an exclusive party to celebrate their pending $5 billion merger with a new global partner. Every guest they invited was handpicked, every moment carefully orchestrated to show their dominance in the business world. But when a tall, graceful black woman named Maya Johnson walked into the room, heads turned, not in admiration, but in mockery disguised as curiosity. She wore a simple, elegant navy blue dress, not covered in sequins or jewels, not branded with an expensive label, but something dignified, strong, and modest. Whispers rippled among the Harrington siblings as they exchanged smirks. Who invited her? She looks like she got lost on the way to a charity dinner, one of them sneered under their breath, loud enough for others nearby to hear. Another chuckled, maybe she's one of the assistants or catering staff who accidentally wandered in. Their comments spread like wildfire through the room, and though some guests tried to remain polite, many mirrored the Harringtons' dismissive stares. Maya, however, didn't flinch. She walked with quiet confidence, her posture straight, her eyes calm, as though every cruel glance simply bounced off her like raindrops against steel. She greeted people warmly, shaking hands with genuine sincerity, not arrogance. But when she approached the Harrington family table to extend her greetings, their matriarch, Evelyn Harrington, barely looked up from her glass of champagne. "Oh," Evelyn said with a thin smile, her eyes narrowing, "you must be the entertainment?" Laughter erupted around the table. Maya's lips curved into a polite smile, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of disappointment. "Not quite," she replied softly, before moving on to converse with other guests. Behind her, the Harrington brothers burst into chuckles, their voices carrying across the marble floor. The whispers continued through the evening, each comment more cutting than the last, mocking her for everything, her skin, her accent, her dress, her presence. By the time dessert was served, the Harrington family had made it abundantly clear, in their world, Maya didn't belong. But what they didn't know, what none of them bothered to find out, was that she wasn't there as a guest by chance. She was the very partner they were negotiating with, the woman whose signature had the power to deliver, or destroy. The $5 billion deal they were celebrating. And the more they laughed, the more the room began to shift, not around Maya, but around them. As the evening unfolded, Maya remained composed, moving through the ballroom with grace and intention. She had learned long ago, in boardrooms where she was often the only black woman present, that silence could be more powerful than shouting back. She listened to the arrogance, the insults disguised as humor, the thinly veiled questions like, "So, who brought you here?" She observed the way their eyes slid past her, dismissing her presence as if she were invisible, except when mocking her gave them a fleeting sense of superiority. Every fiber in her wanted to remind them who she was, to drop her name like a hammer and watch their faces crumble. But she chose patience. Her time would come. For now, she smiled and let their ignorance reveal itself in full light. Across the room, a few influential guests noticed her dignity, noticed the strength it took not to respond to humiliation with anger. One of them, a respected Middle Eastern investor, leaned toward his wife and whispered, "That woman, she has the aura of someone in control." His wife nodded, eyes following Maya as she shook hands with another group of guests, radiating quiet power. Meanwhile, the Harrington siblings grew bolder in their mockery. One of the sons, Christopher, raised his glass and said loudly, "Well, at least she'll have a great story to tell her friends, the night I got to sit in a billionaire's party." His siblings cackled. Maya heard him, of course, but she didn't even turn her head. She simply continued her conversation with an elderly philanthropist who was captivated by her intelligence and warmth. Slowly, the contrast between the Harringtons' cruelty and Maya's elegance became impossible to ignore. By the time the speeches began, Maya had already won quiet respect from some of the other business leaders in the room. But the Harrington family remained oblivious, too blinded by their privilege to notice. Evelyn Harrington finally stood, raising her glass for a toast. To new beginnings, to powerful partnerships, and to the legacy of the Harrington Empire, she declared proudly. The guests applauded, glasses clinking again. Then, in a moment almost dripping with irony, Evelyn gestured toward Maya and added with a smirk, "And thank you to our unexpected guest for giving us all a reminder tonight, that not everyone belongs at every table." Gasps rippled across the room. Some guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Evelyn thought she was being witty, but the cruelty was undeniable. All eyes turned to Maya, waiting to see if she would finally break her silence. Instead, Maya smiled calmly, set down her glass, and replied with a gentle voice that somehow carried across the room, "You're right. Not everyone belongs at every table." A pause fell over the crowd, heavy and thick. Then she added, "That's why some people never realize when the person they're mocking is the one deciding whether this table even exists." The room went dead silent. The Harringtons froze, their smiles evaporating. And just like that, the balance of power shifted, the silence in the ballroom was suffocating. Guests exchanged startled looks, and the Harrington family stared at Maya as though the ground beneath them had just split open. Evelyn's face flushed crimson, her arrogance cracking. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice laced with forced laughter, as if trying to brush off Maya's words. Maya, calm as ever, straightened her shoulders and turned to face the entire room. "For those of you who don't know," she began, her voice steady and commanding, "my name is Maya Johnson. I am the CEO of Global Equity Partners. And for the last 6 months, I've been in discussions with the Harrington family about a $5 billion merger." Gasps erupted around the room. Some guests put down their glasses, others leaned forward in shock, and a wave of whispers rushed through the crowd. The Harrington siblings' jaws dropped, their smug expressions replaced with horror. Evelyn blinked rapidly, trying to process the words, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. Maya continued, her tone never rising, never aggressive, simply firm and resolute. "I came tonight, not just as a potential partner, but to see for myself what kind of people I'd be tying my company's future to. Respect, dignity, and vision matter to me as much as profit does. But what I've seen tonight," she let her words hang, the silence louder than thunder. "What I've seen tonight is arrogance, cruelty, and ignorance disguised as tradition. And I refuse to align my company with that." A collective gasp spread again. The Harringtons fumbled, desperately trying to recover. Christopher stammered, "Wait, we didn't mean, she's joking, right?" His sister tried to laugh nervously. Evelyn stepped forward quickly, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Miss Johnson, please, there must be some misunderstanding. Of course, we respect you, this was all just playful banter." Maya met her eyes, and for the first time, Evelyn looked small. "Respect is not playful," Maya replied. "Respect is foundational. And once it's broken, it cannot be bought back with apologies or contracts." Some guests began nodding, admiration sparking in their eyes. Others quietly applauded her courage. Maya looked around the room, her gaze steady. "The deal is off." Her words struck like lightning. Murmurs exploded through the room, shockwaves rippling outward. The Harringtons paled as if they had lost oxygen. They realized, in that instant, that their cruelty had cost them not just their dignity, but billions. And Maya stood tall, her grace intact, as the empire they worshipped trembled before her silence turned power. The aftermath of that night became legend in business circles. News spread quickly, billionaire deal cancelled over racist mockery at party. Headlines painted the Harringtons as the embodiment of arrogance and downfall, while Maya Johnson was celebrated as a symbol of dignity and justice. In interviews, when asked why she walked away from such a lucrative merger, she answered simply, "Because no amount of money can justify partnering with people who lack respect for humanity." Her words resonated far beyond the business world. Women, people of color, young entrepreneurs, millions drew strength from her story. She became not just a CEO, but a role model, a leader who proved that kindness and respect were not weaknesses in business but the ultimate strengths. Meanwhile, the Harrington family scrambled to repair their reputation. Investors pulled back, allies distanced themselves, and their empire began to show cracks. They had always believed money could shield them from consequences, but this time, the world watched as their arrogance came at a price. For Maya, it was never about revenge, it was about integrity. She knew the deal could have expanded her company's reach, but she also knew that partnering with the wrong people would poison everything she had built. So she continued forward, forming alliances with leaders who valued character over privilege, respect over arrogance. And every time she walked into a room, she carried herself with the same quiet dignity that had silenced an entire ballroom of billionaires. But deep down, she carried another truth: that night was never about the $5 billion deal, it was about drawing a line in the sand, proving that no matter how high the stakes, some things could never be for sale. And as the Harringtons sat in their empty ballroom weeks later, their laughter gone, their empire shaken, they finally understood the weight of their own mockery. They had mocked the wrong woman. They had mocked the woman who could cancel their future with a single sentence. And she did. If this story touched your heart, remember, respect is worth more than billions. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than you are. If you believe dignity is priceless, hit the like button, share this story, and subscribe for more life-changing stories of kindness, courage, and justice.